Hello and welcome to the very first YouTube video on this channel where I will be to start exploring the work of Dante and his The Divine Comedy. This is one translation of it. There are many. Firstly, I would like to give a quick introduction to this channel and what I hope to accomplish on it. First and foremost, I want to explain that this is not an educational channel. I am in no way qualified to be explaining to you the lore of something like the Divine Comedy. Before you deem yourself unworthy of paying attention to a video that is going to likely be around 45 minutes long and discussing a very old piece of text, consider the fact that I'm right there with you. I've never read this before. I've actually never really read anything this challenging before. My main interests as far as reading primarily lay in fantasy and the occasional science fiction. One of the side effects that reading less is causes that picking up and reading something like this is going to be a pretty big challenge for most people. And I know when we start reading it that it's going to be a very big challenge for myself. And one of the things I knew is that I was going to have a really hard time actually picking apart this poem and taking notes on it. I decided that creating a YouTube series of me going through this book was somehow easier than sitting alone in the dark. Well, not in the dark, but sitting alone and reading this book and taking notes alone, even though that's exactly what I'll be doing here. But the more I thought about the idea, the more I realized that I didn't have to only be helping myself. I could be helping those of you who intend to better yourselves in the sense that you want to spend less time on your phone, more time reading books. It doesn't even have to be books. It could be really anything that requires more time, more focus. So, more enriching hobbies or learning a new language. My hopes aren't just that you, at the end of the series, will be able to understand the Divine Comedy in a better light, but that you'll be able to sit and focus, because that's what I've always had trouble with. Throughout high school and throughout college, I could never take notes effectively. I wrote so slow that by the time I finished taking one point of notes, it felt like 10 minutes had gone by and I was struggling to understand where we were as a class and what we were covering. If you are like me, then you also struggle with a shortened attention span caused by probably something like Instagram Reels or TikTok, which those types of things are slowly sort of eating away, or YouTube Shorts as well, slowly eating away at our ability to focus. And not only our ability to focus, but our ability to consume and interpret and analyze more challenging things. And there are probably better pieces of literature to start with than this book, than the Divine Comedy. But I landed on it because not only is it a household name in terms of culturally relevant literature, but it is also something that I just knew simply would challenge me more than any other piece of literature I've read before would or has. Secondly, I want to talk about the intended format of these videos, at least for the time being, and at least while I work on this specific book. So my aim for video length is going to be between 30 minutes to 1 hour. And, that's obviously a lot longer than some people probably prefer, but I'm only going to be doing one video per week. So, and I plan to release each one on Sunday. So, if 30 minutes or 40 minutes or an hour is too long, then I invite you to, split that up over the course of your week in whatever way is appealing to you. In the event that you are somebody who is very scholarly and perhaps you've read this before, I expect that your understanding of the poem will be a lot greater than mine. So for you, I invite you to, engage, and please do not hold back in correcting something that I perceive supposedly wrong. So, part of this series is to offer engagement for everybody to pitch in what they think, because I know for a fact that when I tackle this, that a lot of what I say will be wrong. And that is why I said before, and I want to reiterate again, that this is not an educational channel. This is, you likely won't be learning much other than obviously the contents of the book. I would like to think of it more as sort of an experience channel, not quite as lowly as a reaction channel, but definitely far from educational content or stuff that is actually thoroughly fact checked. The idea is you're going to be experiencing alongside me this text, and you'll be able to see my thoughts on something, but you'll also, I hope you'll be able to, as we read through the lines, create your own ideas. And so when something I say does not align with something that you interpreted, then please comment what you think. And that leads me to the next part, which is that at the beginning of each video, I want to go over, what things I might have missed in the previous reading. So, if I misinterpreted a certain line, or maybe I misinterpreted an entire chapter or whatever it's called, cantos, I don't know, then I want to address that in the following video, just so that, over the course of the series, we are able to maintain some consistency in our analysis of the book, our co-analysis, since we're going to be doing it together. I would be lying if I said I didn't intend for this channel to be entertainment. I want this to be entertaining, but I also want it to bridge the gap with enrichment. I believe that, following something closely over the course of, 45-minute long videos that span over weeks, you'll be able to have a more in-depth understanding of this than you would of something that you only watched a 30-second YouTube short for and then forgot about a few days later. And I'm not trying to call out the audience. I'm actually looking inward, because this is the sort of things that I do on a pretty regular basis. One other thing I would like to mention too is I plan on having various guests on the channel to offer their perspective on whatever chapters or whatever pages we end up looking at in those episodes, and all of this to ensure the sort of collaborative nature I'm intending for on this channel. My hope is that I can get at least one person to, put their phone down for an evening and consider diving into this series, and not only just to put their phone on and watch this series, but to have that lead into sort of a snowball effect on their life. And if I can help even just one person make a positive change to their life, then that would be really enough for me to feel satisfied. Now, I picked up this specific copy of the Divine Comedy English translation, and this one was done by Oxford World's Classics. And I did not put any thought into which translation I would be reading. As a matter of fact, I bought this book before I even conceived the idea for making these videos, so there really was not much thought put into that. There might be people out there who think this is not the best translation, and I can probably say with certainty it probably isn't. It's just what was available at the bookstore I went to get this. Now, I read the introduction and I read a little bit about, Dante's life and what led up to the creation of this epic poem. So I wanted to go over briefly what I read, briefly because I do not want to get any facts wrong. And also because I do not want to inflate this video longer than it's already going to be. So, Dante Alighieri, probably not the correct pronunciation, was born in 1265, so a little under 800 years ago. My math is correct. And he was born in Florence, Italy. He was of minor nobility, and he was, over the course of his life, came to be a poet, diplomat, philosopher, and something of an activist in what he believed. Dante believed that it was the responsibility of those who were enriched by truths to share those truths with everybody, for the purpose of everybody's self-betterment. From what is known, it looks like the Divine Comedy was written between 1308 and 1320. Now, if you don't currently own this translation of the Divine Comedy, then that is not a problem. I think because of the age of this, there shouldn't be any issues with copyright, as I include most of the poem on the screen. I still invite you to pick up a copy for yourself. It doesn't need to be this specific translation. You could do research and decide for yourself what translation you want to pick up. I don't want to waste any more of your time than I already have. So sit down, lock your phone away, make yourself a cup of coffee, and let us begin. Okay, I've got it here, and for the duration of this series, I will be actually reading the physical copy of my book, though when I can, I will be including tidbits of this on the screen. Inferno I, Canto I. This is the very beginning. Halfway along the road we have to go, I found myself obscured in a great forest, bewildered, and I knew I had lost the way. It is hard to say just what the forest was like, how wild and rough it was, how overpowering. Even to remember, it makes me afraid. So bitter it is, death itself is hardly more so. Yet there was good there, and to make it clear, I will speak of other things that I perceived. I mean, there's not a whole lot to unpack here. It would appear that the protagonist, which I believe is Dante, is, halfway along a road, and he is in a great forest, lost. This forest he was lost in was almost as bitter as death. But there were good things there as well. He wants to make that clear, and he will speak about them as he perceives them. That is my understanding. I cannot tell exactly how I got there. I was so full of sleep at that point of my journey, when somehow I left the proper way. So it would appear he was deluded with sleep. But when I had arrived at the foot of a hill, which formed the far end of that menacing valley, where fear had already entered into my heart. Okay, so he's at the foot of a hill, in a valley, and he has been struck with fear. I looked up and saw the edges of its outline, already glowing with the rays of the planet, which shows us the right way on the road. Okay, so the way to go on this road has been outlined by something presumably supernatural or godly. Then my fear was a little put at rest, although it had lain in the pool of my heart throughout the night which I had passed in that pitiful state. And as a man who practically winded staggers out of the sea and up the beach, turns back to the dangerous water and looks at it. Okay, so I think the symbolism here is that he's crawled out of something daunting and overpowering, and he's looking back at it as if he was to say, what have I just gotten through? I think we've all probably been there at times in our lives. So my mind, which still felt as if it was in flight, turned back to take another look at the defile Another look at the defile. No living person had ever passed before. So either he's assuming that he's the first living person that has gone through it, or that he is not living. When I had rested my weary body a little, I took up my journey again on that stretch of desert, walking so that my firm foot was always the lower. And almost at the point where the slope began, I saw a leopard, extremely light and active, the skin of which was mottled. And somehow it managed to stay in front of me in such a manner that it blocked my way so much that I was often forced to turn back the road I had come. Okay, so this leopard is impeding his the road ahead of him. It's causing him to have to rethink his route or turn back. The time was the beginning of the morning, and the sun was climbing in company with those stars, which were with him when the divine love first set those lovely things in motion, and this, with the hour it was, and the delightful season, gave me reason to entertain good hope. So I think what we're seeing with this part and the last 3 lines is that the morning has begun, and with it has come hope. Of that wild animal with the brilliant skin, but not so that I found myself without fear when a lion appeared before me as it did. Okay, so now on top of the leopard, there's a lion. It's interesting because the leopard was blocking his way, but then the morning came, and the morning brought him hope. And I'm guessing that maybe this happened in a moment where he was blocked by the lion, and then it became morning, and the morning gave him hope, although there's still a leopard in front of him. And now there's a lion in front of him. When he came, he made his way towards me, with head high, and seemed ravenously hungry, so that the air itself was frightened of him. Okay, so this lion is not to be trifled with. He's hungry, and he's ravenous. And a she-wolf, who seemed in her thinness to have nothing but excessive appetites, and she has already made many miserable. Okay, so there's a leopard, there's a lion, and now there's a she-wolf, all of which are blocking his path. She weighed down so heavily upon me with that fear which issued from her image that I lost hope of reaching the top of the hill. So the fear of the she-wolf seems to be the most pertinent so far in crushing the hope of our protagonist, which until it's confirmed, I'm just going to assume is Dante. And like a man whose mind is on his winnings, when the time comes for him to lose, and all his thoughts turn into sorrow and tears. One thing I want to note, and I remember reading this, is that I believe this translation omits the rhyming scheme of this poem. And while that sounds like sacrilege, this is a translation from Italian, I believe. So what I'm reading here is already not how it was originally written, which is unfortunate. But I would imagine that reading a translation of it gives us a better understanding of the work than if we didn't read it at all. So we're going to continue anyways. So I was transformed by that restless animal, who came against me and gradually drove me down back to the region where the sun is silent. I'm assuming he's still talking about the she-wolf. Brought onto him so much fear and so much sorrow that it looks like it drove away any of the hope that the sun in the morning had brought him. But we'll find out. While I rushed headlong to the lower slopes, before my eyes a man offered himself, one who, for long silence, seemed to be a horse. H-O-A-R-S-E, not a horse animal. Wait, it might be a horse animal, and that might be how they spelled it, but I don't think so. When I saw that fellow in the great desert, I cried out to him, "Have pity on me, whatever you are, shadow or definite man." And he replied, "Not a man, though I was one, and my parents were people of Lombardy, Mantuans, both of them. They were born and bred there." This stranger's parents being of Lombardy and being Mantuans, whatever those are, probably has a relevance to the story. But moving forward, unless it proves that we need to know what those things are, we're just going to skip that for now and hopefully find out down the road. I was born sub Julio, although it was... Okay, so is that early July? I don't know. Although it was late, and I lived in Rome under the good Augustus, in the time of the gods who are false and told lies. And I think this is him being critical of the church. I don't believe that Dante feels that the gods were liars. No, you know what I think he's saying is I think he is implying that the Roman gods were false, because he was a Catholic, so he was not pagan, and he's claiming here that the Roman gods were false and told lies. So, I was a poet, and I sang of the just, sons of Anchises, the man who came from Troy, after the proud Ilion had been burnt down. This is some more content that's of historical importance. Okay, I looked it up, and what a Mantuan is relating to the Italian town of Mantua. To continue, but you, why do you come back to such disturbance? Why do you not climb the delightful mountain, which is the beginning and reason of all joy? Are you indeed that Virgil, or are you the spring which spreads abroad that wide water of speech? When I had spoken, I bowed my head for shame. So there's a little bit to unpack here, because we have the protagonist interacting with this mysterious man on horseback. Or no, it wasn't on horseback. He was horse. Okay, so the stranger is asking the protagonist, Dante, he's asking, why are you not seeking joy? Because the delightful mountain is the root of all joy. And he's asking, are you Virgil? And then he bows his head in shame. The protagonist bows his head in shame. You are the honor and the light of other poets. My long study and great love give me strength now, as they made me pore over your book. I don't know if the book he's referring to is the Bible, or if he's just referring to a book from this poet, but hopefully we will find out. You are my master, and indeed my author. It is from you alone that I have taken the exact style for which I have been honored. Okay, so I'm thinking back to the introduction that I read, and I believe that the character here, the form of his teacher in the book, the fake version of him that resides purely within the Divine Comedy, that would explain why he says, you are my master and indeed my author, and that the protagonist bases his exact style off of him. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. Look at the animal which made me turn back. Help me to handle her. You are famous for wisdom, for she makes my veins and pulse shudder. Okay, so Dante is asking for help to handle this, probably the she-wolf, because he says, look at her. So he's asking Virgil to help him deal with this animal in front of him that's blocking the path. You will have to go another way than this, he answered when he saw that I was weeping, if you want to get away from this wild place. For that beast which has made you so call out does not allow others to pass her way, but holds them up and in the end destroys them, and is by nature so wayward and perverted that she never satisfies her willful desires, but after a meal is hungrier than before. Okay, so I think this, if I know anything about like this 7 deadly sins or whatever, this is the she-wolf represents some sort of greed. So despite having a meal, she's still hungry. So this is very obviously describing someone who is greedy, or perhaps greed itself. Many are the animals she makes herself a wife to, and there will be more of them until the greyhound comes who will make her die a painful death. He will not feed on land, nor yet on money, but upon wisdom, love, and upon courage. His nation will be between Feltro and Feltro. And this, I have no idea what that is. So we're going to skip that for now and maybe come back to it. And I think he's referring to the greyhound here. So the greyhound who will lead the she-wolf to death will not feed on land nor money, but upon wisdom, love, and upon courage. So the greyhound represents some sort of savior will require wisdom, love, and courage to manifest. What he will save is that unassuming Italy, for which the girl Camilla died. Euryalus, Turnus, and Nisus, all of whom died of wounds. There's definitely some symbolism there. He will pursue that wolf in every city, and put her back in hell where she belongs, and from which envy first led her out. Okay, so that wolf in every city implies that this she-wolf is almost omnipresent, I guess, in every city. So I think this strongly reinforces the idea that the she-wolf represents greed. The course I think would be the best for you is to follow me, and I will act as your guide, and show a way out of here by a place in eternity. So Virgil is offering to the protagonist a way out, and the best path for Dante to follow, where you will hear the shrieks of men without hope, and will see the ancient spirits in such pain that every one of them calls out for a second death. Okay, so this is obviously he's leading him to a terrible place. Men without hope, ancient spirits in pain, and they all call out for a second death. So I don't know what people do know about the Divine Comedy, but what I do know, not having read this, is that it deals with there's three parts. There's Inferno, Purgatory, and then Paradise, or Paradiso. This first part is called Inferno, so we know that it deals with what is presumably hell, based on our knowledge that Dante was Catholic, or Christian, or Catholic. So I think what we are seeing here is the setup for Virgil to take Dante through hell, and what Virgil says here is definitely reinforcing that. And then you will see those who, though in the fire, are happy because they hope they will come, whenever it may be, to join the blessed. Okay. Among whom you may climb, but if you do, it will be with a spirit more worthy than I am. With her I will leave you when I depart. Because the emperor who reigns up there, since I was one of the rebels against his law, does not wish me to enter his city. Okay, so Virgil is offering to bring Dante, looks like, through hell. He refers to a spirit who will basically take Dante further than Virgil is able to. And the emperor who reigns up there, it looks like the emperor who reigns up there would lead me to believe he's talking about God. The spirit that will ferry Dante further than Virgil will bring him to heaven. So I'm assuming that will eventually lead us to paradise. In the third part of this, we will find out. He commands everywhere, and there he rules. There is his city, there he has his throne. Happy are those he chooses for that place. Yeah, okay, so this is sounding like heaven. I said to him, Poet, now by that God who is unknown to you, I ask your assistance. Help me to escape both this evil and worse. Lead me now, as you have promised to do, so that I come to see St. Peter's Gate, and those whom you represent as being so sad. Okay, so it looks like Dante is asking for Virgil's help, Virgil's assistance, and to lead him. The final line of this canto is, Then he moved forward, and I kept behind him. Okay, so Virgil leads the way, and Dante follows behind. That closes out Canto I. Now beginning Canto II of Inferno. The day was going, and the brown evening was taking all the creatures of the earth away from the toil, and I was the only one, preparing himself to undergo the battle, alike of the journey and of that dutifulness which the true memory will recollect. Okay, so it looks like the day is slipping into evening, and it might not be the evening, it might be that they're maybe entering hell. And it looks like he is preparing for battle, essentially. I mean, not battle, but he's preparing for something. O muses, O profound inclination, help me. O memory which recorded what I saw, here will be shown what there is noble in you. What there is noble in you. I began, Poet, you who are able to be my guide, consider whether my strength is adequate before you trust me to take this terrible passage. So it looks like Dante's asking Virgil, am I capable of doing this? You tell me that the father of Silvius, while still in nature, went to eternity and was there with the use of all his senses. I don't know who Silvius is, but if the adversary of all evil was courteous to him, when one thinks of the great effects which followed from him, not only who, but what. It does not seem unsuitable to a man of intellect, nor that he was chosen in imperial heaven, to be the father of bountiful Rome and her empire. The city and the power which truth to tell were there established for the holy place where the successor of great Peter sits. By this journey, for which you praise him so, he came to understand what were the reasons of his victory and of the papal mantle. Papal mantle relates to the church, and hopefully as we continue here that will be confirmed or disproven. And afterwards the chosen vessel went there to bring back reassurance for that faith, which is the beginning of the way to salvation. So these last few sections, I want to say line probably 13 all the way to where we are now, has a lot to do with Catholicism and Dante's religious faith. But why should I go there? By whose permission? I am not Aeneas, neither am I Paul. Neither I nor others think that I deserve it. Therefore, if I resign myself to going, I fear my journey may be a foolish one. You are wise and understand more than I say. So Dante sees himself unworthy. It looks like he's confiding in Virgil that he feels himself unworthy, and I don't know what his purpose is in asking, but it looks like he wants to get to the bottom of whether he feels that he will be capable of undertaking this path. And just like somebody who's shilly-shallies and thinks again about what he has decided so that he gives up everything he has started. I have to look up what shilly-shally means. I looked it up, and to shilly-shally means to fail to act with resolve or without decisiveness. So Dante views himself as somebody who is unable to make proper decisions. I found I was on that obscure hillside. By thinking about it, I spoiled the undertaking I had been so quick to enter upon in the first place. If I have understood what you have said, the reply came from that shadow of generosity. Your spirit is touched by cowardice, which sometimes lies like a load on men and makes them flag so that they turn back from the fittest task, like an animal which mistakes what it looks at. But so that you may rid yourself from fears, I will tell you why I came and what I heard at the point when I first became concerned for you. I think we're hearing now from Virgil, who is saying perhaps that Dante is fit for the task because of his cowardice and because of his fears. It actually makes him a more suitable candidate for his journey. I was among those who are in suspense, and a lady called me, so blessed and beautiful, that I at once begged her to tell me what I should do. The shining of her eyes was more than starlight, and she began to speak, gently and quietly, with the voice of an angel, but in her own language. O courteous spirit of that Mantuan, those whose fame endures still in the world, and will endure as long as the world itself shall last. My friend, who is not also the friend of fortune, on the desert hillside, is in such difficulty, making his way that he turns back for fear. And I fear that already he may be so far lost that I have risen too late to be of help, from all that I have heard of him in heaven. Now leave this place, and with your apt speech, and whatever may be necessary for his escape, help him, and so bring consolation to me. I am Beatrice, and that is why I send you. The place I come from, I also wish to return to. It is love which makes me speak to you as I do. When I am back standing before my master, I shall often talk about you kindly to him. So she was silent, and then I began. Okay, so Virgil is telling Dante of his friend, presumably of the spirit he mentioned before, who will bring Dante the rest of the way through hell or to heaven. I don't know which. She names herself Beatrice, that we know. She says it right here. She sent Virgil on the mission to collect Dante for this journey. Beatrice wants Virgil to help Dante. In doing so, she will speak kindly of Virgil to presumably God. Virgil says, at the end of the last line, so she was silent, and then I began. O Lady of Power, through whom and through whom only the human race is better than all the rest, under that heaven which bends closest to earth, it pleases me so much to have your command, that if I had done it already, I should think myself slow. There is no need to explain your wishes further. Okay, so Virgil is saying yes, and he believes that through Beatrice's power, the human race is better than all the rest. But tell me, why do you not hesitate to come down here into this central place, from the ample heaven to which you burn to go back? Since you would like to be so far informed, I will tell you briefly, she replied to me. Why am I not afraid to come down here? One has to fear only the things which have the power of hurting others. For the rest, they do not matter. They are not to be feared. Okay, so Beatrice is saying that the only things to fear are the things that have the power of hurting others, and everything else is not to be feared. And I am made by God. I thank him, so that all your suffering has no effect on me, nor am I touched by all these burning flames. So Beatrice is a product of God, which has granted her with a lack of suffering, it would seem. And she says, nor am I touched by all these burning flames. So I don't know if that implies that she's immune to the flames of hell. There is a gentle lady in heaven who has pity. On this difficulty I am sending you to, so that the sharp judgment of heaven is broken. She called Lucy to her, and her request was this: your devoted follower needs help. I commend him to you, to do the best you can. Lucy, the enemy of all cruelty, stood up and came to the place where I was, and where I was sitting with the ancient Rachel. Okay, so now we have two more characters introduced, Lucy and Rachel. She said, Beatrice, you who are a glory of God, why do you not help him who loved you so greatly, that for your sake he left the common crowd? Dante left the common crowd for the sake of God. And I think this is referring to is him being exiled from Florence. Florence being the common crowd. Do you not hear his pitiful complaint? Do you not see the death he is struggling with? By that river over which the sea is powerless. Nobody on earth was ever more in haste to seek an advantage or to avoid an evil than I after such words that had been spoken. Okay, so Lucy said this to Beatrice, and Beatrice, after these words had been spoken to her, felt an aversion to them. To come down here from my happy location, trusting you on account of your noble language, which honors you and those who have listened to it. So it looks like because Lucy Lucy was speaking to Beatrice, and Lucy speaking to Beatrice led Beatrice to decide to come down and I guess take upon herself to help Dante through his quest. When she had spoken to me in this manner, her eyes shining with tears, she turned away, and that made me even more anxious to come. So now we are back to Virgil, I believe, explaining his conversation with Beatrice. And so I came to you as she wished me to, took you away from that wild animal which stopped your shortcut to the beautiful mountain. What is it then? Why do you dawdle here? Why do you let such cowardice sleep in your heart? Why have you not more boldness and openness? I believe this is Virgil speaking to Dante, but I'm not certain. When three such ladies care for you in heaven, busying themselves about you in that court, and I report so promisingly to you. As little flowers which in frosty night droop and shut tight, When when the sun shines on them, stretch and look up, erect upon their stalks. So I recovered from my failing strength, my heart so filled with satisfying courage, that I began like a man just released. And he began the speech that is coming up. How generous she was to give her assistance. How courteous you were to obey her so quickly when she proffered her help and spoke the truth. My heart is now so set in its desire to come with you, and it is your words that have done this, that I am back again with my first intention. Now go, for a single will informs us both. You are my guide, my master, and my lord. So I spoke to him, and when he stirred from where he was, I entered upon the deep and thorny way. And that closes out Canto II. And I think right there we are going to end it, because there's a little bit to discuss here. Okay, so what we know as of now is that Dante woke up in this forest, scared and anxious and full of fear, and as he navigates it, he's approached by three animals, a leopard, a lion, and a she-wolf. I'm certain that these three animals are meant to represent different things, but the one that I was more keen on understanding was the she-wolf, which I believe represents greed. In the midst of being accosted by the she-wolf, he's approached by yet a mysterious stranger in the dark. And this stranger is Virgil, who offers to guide Dante on his journey, presumably through hell. In simple terms, Dante agrees to be led by Virgil, who then in the second canto explains that he was sent on this mission by Beatrice, who is an agent of God. Beatrice in the second canto explains why she decided to come down from heaven and help Dante through his journey. Both cantos end with them continuing on the path after some conversation. And so presumably when we pick up the next time, we will see that they continue along. Now, obviously, there were a ton of lines in there and passages that relay much more information than what we've gathered here. For now, I think we're going to leave it at that, and hopefully maybe at the beginning of the next video, or at least in the next few videos as we uncover more of what's going on, we'll be able to look back on some of these lines and see them with a more enhanced perspective. Hopefully you enjoyed, and hopefully you'll stay tuned in for the next one. And I think with that, we'll leave it there. Thank you for watching. And please enjoy this reel of me failing to record myself speaking numerous times. Welcome to the very first channel. I've read many, not too many books. Actually, probably what is considered to be the modern average for a young adult as far as... Ooh. Taking notes as well. I need to stop saying That's too many times I've said it. Cheers.